Okay, well, welcome. I'm so happy that you decided to join us. Just so you know, we're recording. So if you know of anyone who would like to see this webinar subsequent to today, please let me know. I'm happy to send it to them. But I wanted to host this because I had such an amazing experience myself in the Grand Tetons in Yellowstone this summer. We were supposed to go on a cruise in the Norwegian fjords, and as you can imagine, that got canceled. So we thought, why don't we go to one of our beautiful national parks? And we chose Yellowstone because it was always on our bucket list. Luckily, we met Aaron Bailey, and he is our guide. He was our guide at the time, and he just made it a magical experience. It's something that my family will never forget. And so I thought that it would be a really good idea to do a webinar like this for a few reasons. First of all, to get people interested in our national parks. Secondly, to get people interested in Yellowstone. And thirdly, to make people aware of what private guides can do and how they can really enrich a trip and take the stress out and make sure that you have the best vacation experience that you can possibly have in a short amount of time you have to see these parks that are often really, really large and could take months to really see thoroughly. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go through when is a good time to go. We're going to talk about some potential itineraries, different experiences that you can have, what it's like using a private guide, and then if we have time, we'll have some Q&A. But with that, I would like to introduce Aaron, who is the owner of Teton Excursions. He is a private guide. He's got about 20 years of experience in the business. In the last 4 years, he has specialized in Wyoming, particularly the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone, but not just Wyoming, also Montana. And I'm going to leave you in his hands for the next bit. So Aaron, with that, take it away.
Thank you, Peggy. Hello, everybody. Great to see some familiar faces. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
And thanks for coming. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Like Peggy said, my name's Aaron, and I live here just south of Jackson in an upcoming tourism destination called Pinedale. I've done rafting trips in Alaska. I ran a rafting company up there for many years. I've been in tourism at high-end ski resorts in Colorado and here, and it was a natural fit for myself and my wife to start our own tour business about 4 years ago. And it's been great. And it's just the best part of it's been sharing this amazing place with people and getting them to experience it like it's their 20th time in there, the first time they go in. So I really enjoyed it. Work on customizations, and it's just a very customer service oriented trip. And it's just what an amazing place to experience. So thanks for coming. And we're going to go ahead and roll on into kind of our next slide, talking about times of years to visit here. Everyone, the summer is obviously kind of what everyone thinks of, but this is a year-round destination and all the seasons are great. So we just wanted to talk about what each season's like. So starting with early spring here, the benefits of coming in early spring is that's really the wildlife time. The bears are coming out of hibernation. The elk are still in the elk refuge. We have moose down in the valley because there's still so much snow up in the high country. So it's really an awesome time for the wildlife viewing. There's smaller crowds. We have more lodging availability because of that as well. It's really awesome to experience this whole ecosystem in transition. This is one of the largest intact ecosystems in the continental U.S. So to see that in its natural state is just kind of a really great experience. So unique time of year. We have some beautiful epic spring days that can just be the bluest sky you've seen with these snow-capped mountains. And also it could be snowing, which is a great experience for a lot of people that don't always see that. And to have a late May snow shower is good. This area is very volatile, the weather. And so when we do have weather like that, it's part of the experience. This is also a very underrated and under the radar time of year. Everyone's, really thinking to that summertime. So we just really wanted to let people know too about some things to be aware of, and just so you're not caught off guard. But yeah, it still could be snowing too, and that could affect some things about logistics and roads and whatnot. May is our rainiest time of year here. It doesn't rain all the time. There's still very nice weather during that, but we can get some rain. That can cause some road closures, sometimes between Jackson and Yellowstone. But with a guide that knows the area, we can circumvent those issues. And that's a lot of the positive of this, is there are alternative routes, if you know, and that really don't take that much extra time. So in April, not all the entrances are open. So if you're coming here, you are going to want to kind of have a strategic plan with, your guide and your travel agent. You can start in Jackson, and you can still experience Yellowstone by going around the other side to the west side and coming in that way. And then, that just leads into these alternative logistics we're talking about. So overall, spring's great. I think it's really a underlooked time of year, and people that really want that wildlife focus, that's the time to come for them. So moving on to the next slide. And if you have anything, Peggy.
I will. Well, I think it's important to emphasize that the benefit of having a private guide is that if there are any last minute changes, like a road closure or something like that, Aaron could very quickly figure out either an alternative route or an alternative itinerary so that all is not lost. I think that's invaluable, and definitely takes the stress off of people.
Yeah, that's, this being what we do here is, our eyes are on the weather, and we can kind of know what the next storm is going to bring and what the results are going to be sometimes. So, all right, rolling into prime summer. From mid-June to the end of August, and it's the most popular time for a reason. Are you guys still following me? Okay.
Yeah.
It's the most popular time for a reason, and that's the weather. It's probably the most dependable weather of the year that you can count on. It's definitely the warmest. However, that's why people want to come here too, because our warmest day, we may crack 80 degrees and it's very low humidity, where the rest of the country's in the 100 plus and lots of humidity. So it's nature at its peak. It's the wildflowers, everything's blooming. Wildlife is happening and moving, doing their summer thing. We have that different phases of wildlife, like the pronghorn antelope migrations have happened, and they're in Grand Teton Park by midsummer, which you won't necessarily see them there. The trails are more open, believe it or not, the snow is up in the mountains until late June sometimes. So we have accessible hiking. We have great long days, 5:30 a.m. sunrises, 9 p.m. sunsets. Everything is running at full steam with the services in the towns. And then all the activities, like if you wanted to do horseback riding or rafting or even hot air ballooning, gondola rides, that's all happening that time of year. Everything's pretty much at its prime. The few things to be aware of during this time of year is the wildlife's just a little bit scarcer. We're still going to see a ton of wildlife no matter when you come, but these animals are on a survival loop, and so summer is their small little window when they can get up to the high country sometimes and feed on some things that they don't get the rest of the year, some high protein things that they need. This is prime vacation season, so lots of families, lots of foreign visitors if when we get back to normal again, and crowds in the parks and towns. Nothing that inhibits, but something to be aware of. And then the lodging's a little bit tighter. So you want to be, if you're planning this time of year, you're going to want to plan as early as possible to be able to get all your lodging and all that. But in terms of time to come, it's great. You know, kids swim in the river. You can swim in the river in Yellowstone. So I think Peggy, yeah, you guys went and waded out in the river up in Lamar Valley that day. You know, it's just prime summer, and everything that's great about summer is happening. And you can just do so many activities. So
Yeah.
it's, like I said, it's the most popular time of year for a reason.
Yeah, everywhere we
And
went, if there was a river, people were swimming in it. And the other thing that was really nice
yeah,
is we could always have picnics, and Aaron would go get like the best sandwiches from these awesome gourmet deli shops and have it ready for us and have it all set up and in these beautiful locations. So that was definitely a perk of being there in the summer. If you don't mind, Aaron, can I just say one thing about the crowds?
sure.
So, we went in July, which was this like big deal to get on a plane and stuff, but it was really very easy and it ended up with, no problems. What was wonderful was the big coach buses that normally go through Yellowstone weren't allowed. There were no internationals through in coach buses throughout the park. We're kind of guessing it'll be a little similar this year. We might not be seeing the big coach buses. So something to keep in mind if Yellowstone is on your bucket list. Like one of the few good things about what's been going on is that our national parks are really for us right now, and we don't have to compete with thousands and thousands of people from outside the US who are on coach buses. So it really, even though it's busy, it didn't feel nearly as crowded, I think, as it would have normally been, right, Aaron?
Yeah, I agree. That was pretty much the theme for the summer. And it was a big difference on the experience not having those there this summer. And I'm with you. We don't know for sure, but I have a summer as well. A lot of independent travelers, and that was just great. And July wasn't terrible either, even though it was a busy year. Cars, just don't have the impact that the buses did. So yeah, I thought the experiences were some of the best of the seasons that I had this year. Really amazing.
But also that said, even though there weren't huge coach buses, there was independent travel, which means guides like Aaron get booked up really fast. So Aaron is already getting bookings on his calendar for July and August and even September, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't be something that someone could normally contact you in June and be able to book.
For something like this, where we're looking for a very custom multi-day trip, they are already booking up. And but they're, during the busy season, it is a way to see the most, through that system. And just knowing that that's a little bit more in our later slide, but talking about just the advantages of how I can help you guys see more through there. So I appreciate you bringing that up about your experience. It was great. Okay, calendar to fall and autumn.
Okay.
Awesome. So yeah, look at that picture up on the right. That's Mount Moran and Oxbow Bend, and fall is unlike anything else. And it's a popular time too because it's starting to come back for the wildlife. And we have the bears being real active before hibernation. The moose are coming back down to the valley. We have ruts going on and mating season with the elk, and seeing a male elk bugle up in Mammoth is just a great experience. So very different than the rest of the time of year. We obviously get those fall colors early September, and the weather is really great in September for the most part. Random storms can come through, but we still have pretty consistent, really nice warm days, cool nights. The landscapes are obviously fabulous. We have some nice early dustings of snow. Like that picture there just has a tiny dusting at the top. We get nature in transition once again. And September is not a secret anymore, but October is. And the numbers really drop in October. Obviously, the weather can be a little bit more erratic, but also October can be just an awesome value to come with the lack of crowds and still active wildlife going on. So a real special time to be there as well. Our things to be aware of is, like I mentioned, with September, it can be a little busier than you think. You know, people think September would be October crowds, but it's still really nice weather and just a good time to be there. A freak winter storm could come out of the blue that time of year and change, you know, road plans and logistics, which we'll navigate, of course. And then the park just begins slowly limiting services unannounced from day to day. They don't even really announce it. So one day, restrooms and a visitor center that we planned on, the next day could be closed. But that's just a phased approach through September and October. But I really think, you know, summer is just awesome for the weather, but spring and fall for the wildlife. And, you know, autumn is just, you know, you guys are close to New England and stuff up there, and I'm sure you guys have caught those colors, and autumn's just a special time of year. So great time to experience these parks for sure. All right, and then on to our last one that's often overlooked is winter. So Jackson Hole is more than just world-class skiing. It's just an awesome wildlife place in the winter as well. The National Elk Refuge is right there outside Jackson. And on the backside of the refuge, bighorn sheep come down to winter there. There's about 6,000 elk in the refuge in the wintertime. And there's a sleigh ride that goes through there, takes you right through the herds of elk. And you can access the outer road of Grand Teton National Park into the northern side and head a few miles towards Yellowstone before it closes. And so that's really accessible in the winter. Just come and enjoy that. And then also multi-day possibilities like one-way trips, Jackson to Bozeman, where you could do the Grand Teton experience, but then go around to the west side, West Yellowstone, do a separate snowmobile, come out, work our way to the northern side, Bozeman and back down. And that road, that northern road, is open to cars all winter. And that's the Lamar Valley in the Serengeti, the American Serengeti. And you can access all that. And that's where the wolves were reintroduced. That's where just so much wildlife in. To see bison at 10 below zero with, you know, a snow beard is just a special experience. So winter is starting to get known as well, slowly, but very really overlooked. But look at that wall at the top picture, you know, it's pretty cool to stand next to a 6 foot tall.
That's about as tall as me, that wall.
Mm.
Uh-oh, Aaron, did you freeze? So he has what he calls a 1-day loop, which would be from Jackson up into Yellowstone. So sometimes people they've scheduled their own hotels. They're doing a self-guided driving tour. It might not only be Wyoming, wherever it's from, but he can do 1-day trips. So what he'll do is he'll come and get you at your hotel in Grand Teton or in Jackson, and then he can do it's a full day program, trust me, because this is big. In fact, I can't remember offhand, but I think he said Yellowstone is like 200 million acres or something like that. So it's not something anyone's going to see in an afternoon, but he can take you from Jackson up and do what they call the lower loop. So if you think of Yellowstone as think of it like this, right? Like if you think of it as a circle, right, there's the lower loop on the bottom, and that's kind of where Old Faithful is. And then on the top part, that's where you have sort of that Serengeti of North America, where it's like the Great Plains, and you can see the bison and like, just tons of wildlife. So the lower loop tends to get a little more crowded because that's where Old Faithful is, and that's where there's a lot of geysers and cool things like that. So what he would do is he would take you up to the lower loop first, and the good thing is he kind of knows the timing of like what works best. Like for instance, Old Faithful goes off once an hour, and there's always like a 15-minute window. So he sort of knows how to time it to get you there so you're not waiting an hour or you haven't just missed it or whatever. And the other highlights, there's so many things to see that he makes sure that based on the feedback that you've given him, that you're going to see the things that you really want to see. And then from there, he would come down into where the Grand Tetons are. Grand Tetons is a lot smaller. I think he said it was about 340,000 acres, but it is very stunning. Like the pictures, you cannot get a bad picture in the Grand Tetons. You might not see as much wildlife as you'd see up in Yellowstone, but the pictures of the mountains and the wildflowers it's just, we couldn't get enough pictures of that. And the severity of the mountains there sort of reminded me of when we were in Chile. It reminded me of Switzerland. It's just really stunning. And anyone who's been there, I know Pam's been there, you could write, like there's just not an ugly picture there. Even better, he says, is the 2-day loop, which would allow you to, you'd do the lower loop and then you'd go and you'd end in the northern part. And in the northern part, you would stay over there, and then you would wake up in the morning and you'd be there early. So you'd already be there to go out early and see the wildlife. You have a better chance of that the earlier you are and before there's more traffic. And then he would bring you back down into Grand Teton and end in Jackson.
I just really love the northern part. I just think it's special. It's intimate. It's wildlife. It's authentic Montana towns. Cook City's really unique. We stayed there, Pam, in Cook City that one night. And so I think I always push people to, all the Hollywood highlights are on the lower loop, and they should not be missed. They are spectacular. But how I always describe it is the northern loop's more for the connoisseur, for sure. And if you can appreciate that, then you will love it. Not to be missed. And I don't know if we talked about that Lamar Valley being so special. It's, its true nickname, even if you Google it, is the American Serengeti. And that's where the wolves were reintroduced in the late 1990s. There's about 6,000 bison that are in that area. So there's just natural cycles of life going on, of natural causes. And then that becomes attractions for predators. So you'll see bears come in on bison carcasses and wolves and migratory birds, and just all of it is there. And so it's great. And that's the 2-day trip Pam and I did. We went Jackson all the way up to the northern part, to the northeast entrance of Cook City, overnighted there at some cabins, and then came back. Then we were set up at that Lamar Valley Serengeti area, and we hit that early in the morning. And then came back through, hit the canyon on the afternoon. So it's a nice overall survey. If you want to see the whole park in a short amount of time, that's a great way to experience all aspects of it. Now, just below that, the 2-day, or above that, the 2-day lower loop tour. Now, that's a new one I developed over the summer, where an average day, this area is huge, so you have to be prepared for large days. It's a 12-hour day from Jackson to return to Jackson to do the lower loop. So sometimes that is a little long for some folks with kids. Just anyone in general can get a little tired from that. So I offered that as an option, and I did several of those this summer. And we go from Jackson to West Yellowstone in one day, about an 8.5-hour day, overnight in West Yellowstone, and then finish the lower loop circle the next day. You get about 16, 17 hours of touring the lower loop itself, get a deeper look at it. You really get to hit the right spots at the right time. Where, the Grand Prismatic Peggy brought up, sometimes in a very cold morning, there can be a lot of steam there. And so that can cover some of the colors, where in the afternoon, that steam dissipates and you hit it. So we can hit that when you need to in the afternoon. You hit the waterfall, Grand Canyon in the morning when the morning sun is hitting it. If you catch the right 15 to 30 minutes, there's even a rainbow.
Yep. And Aaron, you showed us that. He said, wait, close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. And then he turned us around and we had the perfect view of the waterfall with this huge rainbow in front of it. And it was only there for like that 15 minutes. He got it.
And I only got that about three times this summer, and normally from Jackson, you don't get to hit that in the morning there. So that's the advantage to that, is hitting those times and just taking a little bit, slower pace through the park is a nice option. But if you want the overall survey, it's doing the 2-day up to the northern section, which, I don't want people to miss that area either. Now a 3-day, we kind of go a Jackson to West Yellowstone one day, and then West Yellowstone up through the Lamar Valley, and we come out to Cody. And the thing is this, think of it as the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and Yellowstone National Park and Grand Teton is just one part of it. It's so big. And so when you come out of the northern entrance and you go to Cody, the beauty doesn't stop. It's the Chief Joseph Scenic Byway, a beautiful canyon drive. And so there's routes. The area expands beyond just the park boundaries for sure. So in Cody is a true, authentic Western Wyoming town. There's a nightly rodeo there that I took many tours to this summer, and it was always a big hit. It's
where
not.
I got my hat.
Yeah, there we go. And it's not just for, it's not hokey for the tourists. This is a real deal rodeo where guys are competing on the circuit, and it's a nightly thing there. And so that's an awesome experience. There's the Buffalo Bill Museum of the West, which is 5 museums in one. The hotel Buffalo Bill built himself is still there in the centerpiece of downtown, named after his daughter Irma. So there's a lot of authentic Western history going on there, which is awesome too. And then you just come back from Cody in the east entrance and do the eastern side of the lower loop, and on your way back to Jackson in one day and finish up Grand Teton. So that's a nice way to package the whole thing together and go a little bit more. Now, what was starting to grow a bit last year was everyone loves Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills of South Dakota as well. And I teamed up with a guiding company over there, a husband and wife, very small like myself. And you would go with the experts out there. I'm not going to say I'm an expert of the Badlands and Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills. So I have 2 on the books for this next summer as well, where you fly into Rapid City or vice versa, go with your expert guides in Rapid City, Melina and Kevin, and you do 1 or 2 days with them. And then I go to Rapid City, pick you up, bring you to Cody, and we kind of start the trip that way, a combination of what we've been talking about, or start in Jackson and end in Rapid City. So that's something that was awesome. I did one with retiree family from St. Louis, did one with a young family with 4 kids. And that's a really fun trip just to see a lot. And there's so much in between Cody and Rapid City as well. There's the Bighorn Mountains. Like I said, the beauty doesn't stop, there's Devil's Tower that we didn't talk about. And Devil's Tower's a national landmark, that's a national monument, is one of the first in the country as well. So there's that to box up in between. Kevin and Melina can even, bring you out. There's still so much there. I think, Deadwood is there. And so you can come up through Deadwood and the Spearfish Canyon. So kind of combo those 2 up. Let's see. Salt Lake is a very popular destination for people to fly into, especially from the east and further away destinations, because Salt Lake's a big airport and you can get a lot of directs there. And usually the fares are a little bit cheaper than Jackson. And it's about a 4-hour drive away from Jackson. But something I've been working in that no other companies are really doing is from Salt Lake, we'll come into Pinedale, Wyoming, which is just an hour south of Jackson, and Pam's been there. She came up and visited me for a day, and I showed her around, and we agreed, it's awesome for a day. There's so much history there. This is where the Mountain Man fur trade happened. Very significant historical sites there, and the second largest lake in the state, glacially carved. It's 700 feet deep, is right there in Pinedale. There's a Western cookout, fabulous Mountain Man Museum. So from Salt Lake, we kind of do that for one night and then work our way into the rest of the Yellowstone tour we talked about. But I really think Pinedale is up and coming and really overlooked. And if you want to see some authentic Wyoming, this is a true authentic Wyoming ranching town, and with the beauty there as well.
I really love that. And I feel like
it's about Pinedale.
Yeah, I love Pinedale. I feel like people are in a hurry to see all the highlights, but I would say that's something really special to see in terms of the Mountain Man history. But also, Aaron took us to a fantastic distillery, and the dinner that we went to was pretty special. It was called Pitchfork Fondue, and the fellow cooks all of your meat for dinner on a pitchfork. So
that's what I'm doing tonight, actually.
Yeah, nice.
Sent me the recipe.
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about your van? Because I think you should highlight the features of your van.
You will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one other thing I would like to say is we did the trip we started in Jackson and we ended in Rapid City. And I had no idea all the national forests between Yellowstone and Rapid City. You're driving and all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is a special place. And you find out this is like a pretty significant national forest. And each one has its own unique look and feel. And we were able to stop in Cody for lunch, and then we spent an overnight at a ranch, and then we were able to go on to Rapid City. So there's a lot of different combinations you can do, whether it's like what Pam did, where they came in, they did that version of the trip, or, going more east.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what gets forgotten on two scales of Yellowstone itself. A lot of people really know and just think of Old Faithful in Yellowstone, but there's so much more to Yellowstone than just that. Just like there's so much more outside these park boundaries, between destinations, these national forests. And, Pinedale has the Wind River Mountains, where 9 of the 10 highest peaks in Wyoming are, but it just gets overlooked. But that's just because we have so much in this country of so much beauty and so much land that it gets overlooked a lot. And so that's what's cool. It's a real local experience, seeing so much more that you don't expect, that you have envisioned before this trip. Finishing up on itineraries real quick, even one-way trips like Salt Lake, finish in Bozeman, the Jackson to Rapid City, and then anything custom. Like I think 9 days was a longer trip I did last year, and we focused on hiking, and I ended up starting in Jackson. We dropped them off at a really nice resort in Missoula, Montana. So we can get very custom, or if you just want to do one of these more packaged, it's not really packaged, still very custom, but more set itineraries that are an easy loop, we can do any of those as well. So that's my thing on itineraries. All right, this is just a sample of, these are all just iPhone pictures I took through the summer of my tours and stuff. And in the upper left, we have this West Thumb Geyser Basin. That's Blackpool, just these awesome springs. And then the bison in the lower left, you can barely see it, but there's a bunch of birds on his back. And that's a common sight. You'll see the birds kind of help the bison along through the summer with their coats. And then just some nice families. That third one on the top row to the right, that was the 9-day trip where they wanted to focus on hiking. And we did about 8 to 10 miles of different hikes through Yellowstone each day, as we worked our way all the way up to Missoula, Montana. And then multi-generational trips like that on the right, it's some grandparents that just brought the grandkids. It's kind of perfect for this park is so big and massive. You can have the variety for any type of crowd. It's right for everyone. It really is. And then That third one on the bottom row, that's Yellowstone Falls, and that's the rainbow
There's the
picture.
rainbow.
Yeah, because it's that special to hit when it's like that. And that's just a little sample of some tours from the summer. And
One
then,
thing we were talking about earlier is in terms of experience, where you stay can really enhance that experience. And a lot of times people want to stay in the parks, which is good. And like we can always do that and make combo trips of in and outside the parks. But we were talking about Aaron has a lot of cool places like on the border of the parks or in different small towns. And a lot of them are, quite historical. They have really interesting culture and activities. And so sometimes, I mean, Aaron, you can definitely talk more about this, but sometimes staying in the parks, you're surrounded by all visitors. Whereas if you stay in small towns outside the parks, you might have a richer experience.
yeah, absolutely. And on Pam's trip, we stayed in Cook City, ranked one of the coolest small towns in America. It's funky. It's 145 people year round, but they get almost 500,000 visitors come through there. So they have services, but you get to see what these real Americans in these small mountain towns making a life out of it are doing. Most of the lodges are mom and pop lodges and unique dining like Montasia, which is kind of a fusion of cattle country and Malaysian cuisine, just these unique mom pop kind of things there that are really just really special. Cook City's in a valley with mountains all around you as well. And then Gardner, where that's the original entrance to Yellowstone. That's a really cool, unique town. The Roosevelt Arch is there, has some great dining as well, and other activities. So you're right. And then Pinedale too, being a true Western Wyoming ranching town. Everything's local. You won't see a lot of chains in any of these places for sure. And then Jackson, is just world class. That's just what it is. It is busier, but it's a world-class resort. And once again, it's busy for a reason because it's so nice. They did such a great job in keeping the old architecture and wood boardwalks and that Western feel in the town. And obviously has the Tetons right there. Nothing matches that. But I love it. I love taking people to the more off the beaten paths. And that's what you get, going with locals and private guides is not just this cookie cutter trip, is trying to see this more authentic experience. And that's what we all really want,
And not to mention what we experienced this summer with the lodging in the parks were really closed. They only allowed any lodging that had small cabins. And those are really, when I say they're 2-star and there's no Wi-Fi and there's very limited dining experiences, I'm not exaggerating. So if the way it was last summer is the way it is this summer, I would say you don't want to stay in the parks. You want to stay outside the park.
Well, I think that's a very good point, Peggy. And even now, I've just been kind of dealing with a trip that wanted to stay in there. And they are accepting bookings for 2021, but we don't know what that's going to mean. We don't know if, it's going to be limited food service. A lot of people like Old Faithful Inn because of the great dining room and all that. And if it's just grab and go, that's going to be tougher. We just don't know what it's going to be. I feel like this summer is going to be one summer too early to be planning on those amenities. Because other than that, you're very remote in the park. You're at the lodge, you're in the area. There's no other real services around.
No cell service.
Cell service as well is very spotty. Whereas West Yellowstone is built up primarily for lodging, but also it's a cool little strip, and to walk around, nice town and lots of dining choices and whatnot. So yeah, I'm a little hesitant on recommending people for park lodges right now. I had a multi-day where their travel agent booked them at the Lake Hotel last year. And that was maybe the one little drawback of the trip was, the guests called me early the next morning and were like, can you pick us up an hour early? Because we just can't get any food, can't get things here, things like that. And so we see the light at the end of the tunnel with all this, but I still think it's going to be another summer before you can really depend, on that. But besides that, personally, I just like the out of the park experience. Go visit it while you're in there, and then see some other stuff in the evenings.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, Peggy. So customizations, this being a private tour, it's all about the guests and what their interests are and what they want to see and the pacing that they want. So we can customize it like that picture I showed you. Hiking, we can make it a hiking focused trip. Your interest focused trip is more the geothermals or wildlife or history. We just curtail it to that. And like this picture, for example, was a teacher trip I did 2 summers ago, and I was with them for 4 days. I took them to this area in the afternoon, and it wasn't calm water. In the afternoon, there's always a breeze. So we talked about it that night and said, if you really want to experience this place the way it's meant to be, we got to go for a sunrise. So we went out at 5:30 in the morning, and that's a 5:30 in the morning picture there right at sunrise with the purple hue, that beautiful 15 minutes you get. So, we customize like that too. The pacing, if you want to add activities, rafting, some museums, that rodeo, the Western cookouts, all that. And then the last one on there is I can customize with mobility and special needs. I did several wheelchair trips last summer, and did a 98-year-old World War II vet. He could walk, but we still did the wheelchair just so we could cover all the ground. Because even on a light day of just staying on the boardwalks, there's so much ground to cover. We still do 2 to 3 miles just on the boardwalks. If we had the prismatic hike in, that's easily a 5 to 6 mile day, stuff like that. So mobility, the van, speaking of that, Pam, the back cargo area is big enough that I have put in motorized wheelchair in that several times in a tour. So we have that ability too. So don't think if you can't walk or those distances, I know ways around that too. In the wheelchair, just to get in and out is awesome. So we can customize on any of those levels. And whatever you think of, we'll try our hardest to make it happen. All right, so why a private guide? Well, the first thing on this slide is we talked about prismatic and didn't have a picture of it earlier, but that top left picture of that family in the background is the Grand Prismatic right there. And it's the largest hot spring in the world. It's 140 feet deep in the middle. And then so that very hot part, bacteria cannot grow in that. And so the rainbow effect is those temperature coolings as the water comes up. And those are heat-loving bacteria that create that rainbow color around there. And it's just crazy that it exists on the planet. I don't know anywhere else you can see something like that. And the size of that is probably 200 feet across. Now, that's where the advantage of the guide comes in too, because if you just follow the map the Park Service gets you, and you see where Grand Prismatic is on the map, it takes you to a different spot than that. It takes you to the lower spot where your eye level with that, which is fabulous, no doubt, but you cannot get that overlook view that you want without knowing the unlabeled parking lot, if you will, and stuff like that. So that's a 1.5 mile round trip, very slight incline, but doable for most folks. Okay, the private guide. This experience, I love this place. A lot of people talk about how excited I get on the tours too, even though I've done it 100 times, but it's so awesome. And because every time I see something new as well, there's geysers that I've never seen erupt in that park. And then one trip, I'll see it, so you get the experience of someone that's been there 100 tours that's observed those little intricate things that you miss your first 40 times going through there, and you get to see that your first time. So it's the comfort of knowing where to go, where not to go. There being 10,000 features in this park, there are some pullouts that aren't necessarily worth the time to go there. It's worth spending more quality time in some of these other spots, doing the walk up to this overlook or whatever you'd like. So there are spots that you don't need to go and can burn an hour of your time quickly. The best time to experience sites, so we kind of covered that with like the waterfall and the rainbow, and this prismatic is the one where if you hit that early in the morning when it's still 40 degrees out, there may be so much steam that could block some of that view. And then the parking lots and just navigation, it's just like if I came to your town, I'd just be nervous and not know the big city ins and outs. And the park is like this too. It's a loop, but there's ins and outs everywhere. So it's efficiency. It's taking a left when the crowd goes right, and then your left turn leaves you with an unobstructed view of Old Faithful with 20 people around, opposed to the bleachers with 2,500 people around you. So it's just the little tips like that. The no stress of driving and navigating the park kind of leads into that. I provide professional optical equipment, really nice high grade spotting scopes and binoculars. And then I have an adapter on the spotting scope as well. And we can really get in and focus on, I think both of your trips, Peggy and Pam, we saw the bighorn sheep heading out on the North Loop, and that was with the spotting scope, and I have a phone adapter and all that stuff. And then that's my personal goal on these trips. Things happen and there's always unforeseen circumstances, but I always strive to provide a world-class experience with world-class service. So I really take what your interests are, through our conversations and something you bring up that I know I can make happen, that happens. And, I kind of curtail it. Like that bigger group I took from Rapid City this year, they were from St. Louis, and we didn't have Pinedale planned. And we also had a little smoke in the air at that time of year. And by that, there's a big connection in that fur trade between Pinedale and St. Louis. And we just adapted and did the historical tour, and it made their whole trip. They stumbled upon names of a ballpark they've played in their whole life called Sublet Field in St. Louis, and Pinedale, Sublet County. And the fur trader, he had a 1,000-acre ranch there. So I listened to him. I was like, oh, they got to go to Pinedale, and we're going to just change the last day and go down there. And we got a great trip out of it. And then efficiency, the 2-day trip is honestly, we're going to see 3-4 days of the park in those 2 days. So it's very efficient. And then the local knowledge, whatever ins and outs I can give you, restaurant recommendations, activities, company recommendations, all those things, fly fishing guides, whatever you're looking for. So that's what it's about. I think that's where travel's going, is it can be custom for you now, is like, we can do this small. We have the technology, is like, let's make it just for you and your family,
Yeah. And I would say that previously, before COVID, if you wanted to go on a tour out west to any of the national parks, typically you were going to get on a coach bus and you were going to go see it with 50 of your new best friends. There really aren't a lot of private guides that will take you on your own customized tour. It's definitely something that is becoming more popular and more available now that people want to travel independently. And Aaron and I were just talking about how we think it's kind of the new normal, that even after vaccinations or whatever, that people are just going to maybe want to stay away from crowds for a while. And so, if you go out there and you look for tour guides that will actually drive you through these parks, it's not that many. Like, I feel like we're tapping into something kind of new here. And that said, as a travel agent, my job is to make sure that my clients have the most robust experience that they can have. And my advice to people is always that, it's great if you don't have a budget and you can swing everything and, stay in the 5-star luxury resort and have the private guide, but it doesn't always work that way. Most of us have a budget and we have to price pace. And so if you have to price pace and you have to decide where you're going to spend that money and what you're going to invest in, then I always suggest your experiences. I've been using private guides from way before I was a travel agent. And I can tell you that we have had some of the most amazing experiences because of that, and also cultural connections that we wouldn't have had otherwise. We've saved ourselves a lot of stress and a lot of time trying to figure out things. So, my advice as a travel agent is to invest in the experiences and also invest in transportation if you can. And not to take over from you, Aaron, but like,
no, this is all great.
We were, it's the difference between Scott driving and not really getting to see everything we're seeing, and me yelling at him to pull over for the 50th time because I want to take a photo. And the four of us in the back of Aaron's beautiful van that has big windows that we can see out of, and he's driving and he's, telling us what we're seeing, and we're snapping photos and we're looking around and we're just relaxing and enjoying and actually experiencing it versus trying to figure it out. So, why a private guide? In my opinion, it just will totally make the experience stress-free.
I will promote that. I will tell you that Peggy has probably organized every trip that I've ever done. And I would promote the fact that the guides are the way to go. I tell Peggy what I want, what I'm looking for. She makes it happen. I pick up my information, and I know that I'm going to be picked up at the airport. I'm going to be picked up here. I'm going to be picked up there. I don't even think about it. And my family has a wonderful time. So Aaron, you've been wonderful. I definitely will be reaching out to Peggy and you to talk more about our trip. Thank you so much. And I don't mean to monopolize, so keep going.
Not at all. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate the endorsement of private tours too. And that's the folks I take primarily have taken tours before. They know the value of it, and that's what I want to deliver is value to get the most out of these parks. A lot of times you only get to come here, once a year, or once in your lifetime. And so you might as well do it right. And that most people think of private tours as being a very expensive option, and so before this, even this summer, we saw a lot of group tours, group wildlife tours. And when you do a private tour, sure, there is a pricing to 4 people, but if you have a family of 6 or a family of 7, and then it goes down per person. So you have a rate for the 4, and then it's a much smaller per person after that your overall average is about what the price of a group trip would be for 7 people to have a whole private trip on your own. And when I'm doing these multi-day trips, I have a 12-passenger Ford Transit raised roof van. So I'm 6 foot tall. I can basically stand up, and just the crown of my head touches the top of the roof in there. And so I like to bring, even though it's 12 passenger, I like to do 8 people, 9 people, and I have an attachment. We can carry the luggage, and it's just a great road trip vehicle, very comfortable. People can spread out in it and take advantage of those big windows. But a 2-person trip, don't let that discourage you as well. Is for something like that, like I have a really nice 7-passenger Toyota Sienna with dual bucket seats in the back with roll down windows. And for a 2-person tour, something like that is just awesome as well.
People, our family went in both your vehicles.
Yeah, you did both. Both.
Yeah. Hey, Aaron, we have about 10 minutes left. So okay. I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about the COVID kind of policy that you have, and what you did to keep people safe.
Sure. Thanks for bringing that up. So we're obviously taking it serious here too. And, we have to abide by all CDC, but the park regulations. So for my van, basically that work went up. It's basically a full detail of the van after every tour. Like I go through and wipe down with soap and water all the hard surfaces, and then go back with an alcohol spray. And then with the binoculars, it's wiping all that down. Offering everyone's has masks on. I do the tour with masks on when we're in the vehicle, but that's the beauty of going to the nature is we can be 6 feet apart in the outdoors. and have that open, fresh air. In the summertime when it's nice, we keep a window cracked, keep that fresh air flowing, and just have all the supplies we need. I even do a hand wash station sometimes in the bigger van, can do warm water, and so actually have soap and water on the trip as well. And that's kind of the key too, is knowing this place. There are a lot of outhouses, and so where the services are, where the running water to hand washing stations, things like that. So we got through the summer really safe. I took probably about 150 people total on all these private tours, and never really got contact traced at all from any calls. And it was really safe out there. These hotels are taking it very serious. So I felt safe giving it as a tour operator. I feel people, we're into the groove now, 6 months in. So I don't think there's real hesitation there. Summer, the warm weather is going to help a lot. I think we'll kind of go back to that. We're seeing this fall spike, is I think a lot of us expected, but when the warm weather comes back, we'll probably be in a very same situation as last summer. And I felt very safe to travel for sure.
We felt safe too. We did.
Yeah.
So,
a few questions, or we're not quite there yet?
well, we're there. We have about 6 minutes left. So.
Okay. Sorry that I fell off.
No, not at all. We kept it going. I think we did okay, everybody, right?
Yeah, I saw some of it when I came in.
Experience. So
yeah, that's what's awesome about this.
So let me just conclude by saying again, thank you for joining us. I want to suggest heavily that if you want to go this summer and you're interested in using a private guide and working with Aaron and myself, to start that planning process sooner than later, and for a few reasons. First of all, private guides are extremely popular right now, so they are booking up early. Second of all, most of the lodging is at 50% capacity, so they are filling up. The national parks is like the #1 trend right now for Americans. So it's not that it's busy like it used to be, but it's busy enough that you want to plan sooner than later. So don't wait until June to plan a trip to July. You definitely will want to be calling us for the summer, sort of around now, January. And then second of all, remember, we can always customize. So even if you don't want a full-on private tour, like several days private tour, Aaron can do day trips, and we can customize for anybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Again, if you have a friend that might want a copy of this, we have recorded it. And, stay safe, everybody. Please don't be afraid to plan travel. Just because of what we're going through right now doesn't mean that we are not going to have fun in the future.
Yeah.
We will. And they've actually shown that they have research that shows that by planning a trip, you actually have some endorphins going, and the hope makes you happy. So we do encourage you to plan and not be afraid to do that. Things are so flexible now. So if things take a turn for the worse, we can always reschedule, but don't be afraid to plan. Don't be afraid to have happy times in your future. They are coming. We are going to have them again. So with that, I think we need to sign off. Aaron, do you have any farewell for anybody?
No, I thought that was great words of encouragement to end on, and that's how I feel as well. And I'm sure there's some things we missed in here, but you got the general gist that it's just really about a great experience for you, and world-class service and customization, and just making this a trip of a lifetime for you guys. So thanks for having me. Thanks for coming and giving me the time. It was awesome having some old friends, Peggy and Pam, there. Then we've all done our trips. So I thought that was a great thing to add in, some firsthand knowledge. And just thank you guys so much. Super appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
We're so lucky in the U.S. that we have these amazing national parks.
Oh, yeah.
Yellowstone will not let you down. So
Yeah.
I'm buying a hat like you, Peggy.
yes, I got this in Cody.
Mine
And
is drawer. I gotta get a new one.
I was showing, I also got these beautiful boots.
You know what though? Steve will kill me if I buy another pair of boots. I got them all when we were in.
Oh, I go crazy. I bought turquoise jewelry. I bought clothes. I bought handbags. Like you just, if you want to shop, bring me with you.
You know that.
I have a
You know
nose
that.
for it. I find it all.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Peggy.
Yeah.
This is really, really helpful. Thank you so much.
Happy
Bye,
Thanksgiving.
guys. Have
All
fun.
right, thank you, Peggy and Erin.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Peggy.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for
Bye.
coming.